All right, so according to my clock, it is 10:40. Thank you for joining us for our state energy panel. MTERA, or Midwest Tribal Energy Resources Association, brings together member tribes across Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan. State policy and regulations have major impact on our member tribes. To help navigate state-specific changes, we've brought together state energy leaders from each of our states. We have Maria Redmond from Wisconsin, Catherine Lavelt from Minnesota, and Corey Connolly from Michigan. Each will present for about 10 minutes, and then we will have a Q&A session at the end. So please enter any questions into the Q&A box down in the, I think it's in the bottom center of the screen. And we'll address those probably after the presentations are complete. So again, thank you. And first up, we have Maria Redmond. Maria serves as the director of the Wisconsin Office of Sustainability and Clean Energy and has worked for the state of Wisconsin for 21 years. Maria leads the planning, administration, and oversight of statewide energy programs and policies. In addition to helping with the development and implementation of the recommendations from the Governor's Task Force on Climate Change, Maria is leading the development of a comprehensive statewide clean energy plan, of which I had the honor of working with Maria and many stakeholders from across the state. The plan is centered on environmental justice and will create a pathway to multi-sector deep decarbonization and a bustling clean energy economy that supports a diverse workforce and technology innovation. Maria, thank you for supporting MTERA, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today, and hi to everyone in the audience. Looking forward to someday being able to meet you in person, but for now we're still here. And I just wanted to run through, I know it's only a short amount of time, but open up the opportunity to continue collaboration with MTERA and our tribal nations throughout the Midwest. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Office of Sustainability and Clean Energy, I'm just really quickly running through that. The office was created via executive order by the current governor, Tony Evers, and really we're focused on addressing the effects of climate change through programs and policies that support the use of clean energy resources and technology. And we partner with other state agencies and state utilities, as well as a variety of stakeholders to ensure all electricity consumed in Wisconsin is 100% carbon-free by 2050. So my office facilitates a lot of interagency coordination. So I work with over 14 agencies within the state, including the UW system. And we elevate and align all of our programs and our sustainability work across agencies, but also sync it up with what's happening locally so that we're not just operating as this government body, but we're connecting with our local governments, our tribal nations, all the stakeholders that are involved in this, because energy affects everyone. So this is really important. We want to provide energy information and meetings with stakeholders and just advance policy and gather input. So one of the benefits of being invited back for a second year, which I'm very honored that you asked me to come back and weren't throwing tomatoes and telling me never come back, is that like I got to go back to my presentation from last year and see where we're at. And we were right off the heels of the Governor's Task Force on Climate Change releasing their final report, which had 55 recommendations to address climate change through mitigation and adaptation. And then we also were looking at that time, we were looking at the governor's executive budget, and I think there were well over 38 recommendations and proposals within the governor's budget. And we were kind of waiting to see what climate and energy related proposals would get passed as part of the budget. And turns out none of them got passed. And so that was really disappointing that our legislature didn't support those efforts. So we took we had started the work on the Wisconsin Clean Energy Plan. And so we really saw it as an opportunity to increase the importance of that work and increase the importance of the plan and define how is Wisconsin going to reduce our emissions economy-wide, and how are we going to address environmental justice and equitable economic workforce development and all of these issues in our state without the support of legislation. And so what we did is we really looked at all of the input that was given. We held some listening sessions related to our clean energy plan, and really we're trying to figure out what is the best path forward. And what are we trying to do here with our clean energy plan? So the clean energy plan, I'm excited to say, really addresses climate impacts, addresses health impacts. We spend a lot of money on energy. We currently send $14.4 billion out of state because we have no substantial in-state fossil fuel resources. So we're spending a lot of money out of state. Like, how do we recirculate that into our economy? And how do we build the workforce? And so with a lot of consultation with agencies, Native nations, federal and local governments, non-governmental organizations, tech companies, we are very, very, very close to releasing our clean energy plan for the state. And what they have are strategies and pathways to transition us to clean energy. And it's about collective action. It's not just the government working on this. This is everybody who has an interest, who maybe folks who haven't even been introduced to the energy sector and what they can be doing. Everybody has a role to play in ensuring that they're actively involved. So as we're having the conversations around the clean energy plan, we also have focused objectives to reduce the disproportionate impact of energy generation and use on low-income communities of color, and make sure that these communities are prioritized in receiving clean energy economic and health benefits, making sure that there's equitable opportunities for clean energy jobs, improving reliability and affordability, and protecting our human and environmental health by reducing ecosystem pollution. And so 4 pathways have emerged as part of the plan: accelerating clean energy technology deployment, where we're looking at increasing funding options for projects, investing in infrastructure, looking at new goals, like new emission goals, setting new goals across the board, expanding state energy resources for generation, technology innovation, and leveraging existing policies and programs. We know that the state actually has a lot of programs, like grant programs like the Energy Innovation Grant Program, the Focus on Energy Program. So we want to leverage those programs because we recognize that anything new likely has to go through the legislature, and we're having challenges there. So where can we create the action that we want right away? Maximizing energy efficiency is another one. Like, we want to lower the amount of energy that we're using. So we want to make sure that we are maximizing and strengthening our energy efficiency standards and goals. Another pathway that we're looking at is modernizing buildings and industry, addressing building codes and how far behind our building codes are, supporting electrification, again, expanding funding for buildings and industry, and supporting industry and businesses in their transition to clean energy and being more efficient. And then innovating in transportation, and that's transitioning to low to no emission vehicles, including clean burning fuels, not just electrification, but also clean burning, low emitting fuels, and supporting refueling options, and also looking at how we move people around, and making sure that we're looking at a multimodal mobility option so that we're able to move people around in an efficient, safe way. And within all of those pathways, We also weaved within all of those we're prioritizing health equity, environmental justice, and equitable economic development. We're fast tracking workforce development and just transition. And the area that I'm super excited about is accelerating government-led efforts, lead by example. And we've actually called out our tribal nations as a key leader in this area to help us as a state to address our emissions. And so I'm excited to work with our tribal nations to develop projects and to support the work that you're doing, and really find find those resources to support all of the great work and the projects. And so the timeline for that is actually going to be for the Clean Energy Plan. We are hoping to release it before the end of April. And then we will be working on a work plan. So it's not just a plan that sits on a shelf. It's a living, breathing, actionable plan where we're measuring, are we actually reducing emissions? Are we actually doing what we say we want to do? And then adjusting along the way. We want to be held, make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable and really doing what we say we want to do. And then the work that we're doing, and I'm almost to my time, I just want to also say that it's not just about the work of the Clean Energy Plan, but there's a lot happening at the agencies and there's a lot happening locally. So we want to support that as well. And so the agencies, like I just want to make sure that, and I'm happy to share some links in the chat, the Public Service Commission has open carbon investigation roadmap to zero carbon docket. And so there's also a parallel generation docket. There's a interconnection group that I think, Mike, that you might be, or MTERA might be involved. There's a lot happening at the Public Service Commission, as well as with building codes with the Department of Safety and Professional Services and Housing and Economic Development Authority, that there's a lot of opportunities to get engaged and involved. And so that's one of the things that we're really going to work on, is ensuring that when these opportunities come up and that you have a voice in the process. And that is something that we have been missing as part of our processes in the state for a very long time. So there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of resources coming federally. So in addition to the dockets, we're organizing around the infrastructure law to ensure that we also tap into as much money, and the Midwest is competitive and able to get some of those dollars as well. So we want to have these conversations. We want to get the resources here. I got it all in.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Maria. That 10 minutes goes fast, that's for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you for that update.
Absolutely.
Catherine, I apologize. I should have checked with you on your pronunciation of your last name.
You did great. All good.
But, thank you for supporting MTERA, and continue.
Thank you. And I'm really excited to be here. I'm Catherine Blauveld. I'm Assistant Commissioner in the Division of Energy Resources at our Minnesota Department of Commerce. And I think in the audience, we have a couple other colleagues who are really working hard every day. Pete Berger from our State Energy Office, and Leah Wilkes, who's our Director of Public Outreach and Engagement. But more than anything, just wanted to say appreciate the opportunity for this sharing, right? So government to government, it's a really unique opportunity. So I'm going to just go ahead and share some pretty specific resources and information related to energy and tribes, some commerce specific resources, and then I can't not talk about the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, right? Because we're all thinking about it. So I'll end on that. So first, commerce specific resources. What I will say in the state of Minnesota, for buildings that your government owns, that you want to do energy efficiency improvements on and upgrades, maybe you want to hire an ESCO, an energy services company, our state energy office can provide technical assistance, right, to tribes, and has done. And that can take a bunch of different forms. Just a couple examples, we can meet and sort of support you in reviewing your current facilities and their sort of the age and condition, right? talk through, right, what are previously implemented energy conservation improvements you've done and sort of potential measures you could do, support you thinking about goals, thinking about various contracting processes, right, that could be used to develop and implement an energy project. We have B3, which is a wonky way to say we have a benchmarking database that a lot of public entities in the state use, and tribes often use it too. So we can help support, making sure that data is helping you. And we also have some sort of benchmarking tips we can help you with. So all of that to say, if anyone's interested in working with our office and receiving that support, I'll drop in the chat or send after this resources. And then I also want to say the same thing on the renewable energy side, right? So I totally acknowledge many governments have and are moving forward with really ambitious projects that, frankly, the state of Minnesota can learn from. But again, if you're looking for technical assistance as you think about citing renewable energy or wanting to buy more, please think of us as a resource. So that's one piece of the puzzle. I also wanted to note we have our weatherization assistance program and our energy assistance program, which everyone's familiar with. On the weatherization assistance side, you folks should know we have applied for a federal grant. Haven't heard if we've gotten it yet, but that grant would provide a lot more funding to specifically remediate roofing and electrical system upgrade needs, right, for those residential homes, with a focus on historically redlined neighborhoods and tribal lands. So that's in direct response to consultations we've had and feedback, right, from community partners. So we're hopeful we'll be successful on that. And if we are, you'll be hearing about it. And then would love to end on the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, which I know we're all tracking. There's over 60 new programs from the Department of Energy alone. Really, we essentially have the same information you do, right, which is limited. Build.gov is that public-facing portal that the feds have created for the entire act. It's obviously much bigger than just energy. There's broadband and some funding is flowing directly to your governments in some cases. In other cases, you are an eligible entity for competitive funding, right, opportunities that are in front of us. And then there's also the case where the state of Minnesota could partner, right, with your government on a competitive grant application. But really the issue is we're in really early days, right? We just don't have a lot of information and detail on the programs as far as, actual requests for information or actually requests for proposal from the federal government, right? And I'm sure you're all receiving the same information we are. I'm sure more from the U.S. DOE Office on Indian Energy, right? So what I would say is we all want to benefit, right, from this historic influx of funds. If you're seeing a barrier or aren't getting, response or the information you need, of course, reach out to us, right? And, we can try to leverage our contacts at DOE. I know there was a virtual consultation opportunity, I think with Secretary Granholm from Energy just this week. And I have heard from Department of Energy their interest in figuring out how to appropriately provide technical assistance, because everybody had full-time jobs before this funding came along, right? So you don't have grant writers sitting around waiting, right, to be able to write the grants. So that's a real issue, and we're thinking about that too. And I'll point out a couple of federal competitive programs through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act where tribes are eligible to directly apply, right? So there's energy improvement in rural and remote areas. So that's a pretty broad competitive grant opportunity that simply says, do you have energy infrastructure that needs to be upgraded rather? And are you in a rural area? There's a bunch of clean technology sort of pilots or demonstration projects. So if your government has sort of that infrastructure, or a business or a private partner, there's everything from hydrogen hubs to solar improvement R&D, solar recycling, next generation wind energy technology, carbon capture demonstration, carbon capture pilots, energy storage pilots, right? So, all of those, of course, the opportunity for you will depend, on your unique situation. And if you think it would be helpful to keep the state of Minnesota in the loop, or I should say the Department of Commerce, please reach out to us. And we're trying to track these mini programs and opportunities as well. And we'll put out information in when we get it. And then just to go up a level, and really appreciated hearing Maria's presentation on sort of the broad arc of work here in Minnesota. The Wells Flanagan administration is really doing similar efforts, right, in terms of working through a framework for action on climate change, right, that addresses mitigation, that it tries to center equity and drive those next immediate steps that are really needed to get us where we need to go to have healthy and resilient communities across the state. And we know the impacts of climate change are obviously disproportionate on some communities, as are the economic benefits and challenges. So I will just note and say my appreciation for, probably many folks in this forum who have engaged with, again, government to government on that topic. And our commitment is, again, as we draft that and draft action steps and proposals, that we're consulting and hearing what would be useful for your government. So that's my presentation. I do want to say we're excited that we may have a new tribal liaison in place at Commerce. And in the meantime, if you have any questions about any programs I've mentioned, I'll drop in the chat or get to you the contact information of Leah Wilkes, who's our Director of Outreach. Thanks.
Happened again, doggone it. Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate that information. I realized that I made a terrible blunder and I did not read your bio. So the quick and dirty version, Catherine is the Assistant Commissioner of the Division of Energy Resources at the Minnesota Department of Commerce. And she supervises the Energy Environmental Review and Analysis, Energy Assistance, and Telecommunication units. So thank you very much, Catherine. I appreciate your information, and hopefully Minnesota tribes will be able to communicate directly with you and get some stuff going up there. Corey, I will not do that with you. I will introduce you properly. Corey leads the Office of Climate and Energy at the state, for the state of Michigan, helping move Michigan toward carbon neutrality by 2050. Prior to his role with the state of Michigan, Corey was vice president of the Michigan Energy Innovation Business Council and was the founder and director of the Michigan Clean Energy Leaders Project, a leadership program and network focused on building a more diverse and collaborative clean energy industry in Michigan. Corey was appointed by Governor Whitmer to serve for a 2-year term on the Michigan Council on Future Mobility and Electrification, and also to serve on the Michigan Council on Climate Solutions as the liaison to the Council on Future Mobility and Electrification. He has also served as, I forgot what COO means, for the 11 Energy Partners and Lean and Green Michigan, a clean energy financing marketplace, and has held positions with Five Lakes Energy, the Environmental Law Institute, and U.S. Department of State. Corey, thank you for joining us. Take it away.
Great, thanks. Sorry for sending along a long bio. I probably could have focused that a little bit more on my current job, but admittedly, I've only been in the job for 4 months or something like that. So I'm still new here. So thanks everyone for joining, and thanks for the opportunity. I'm really excited to get to work on this issue. I'll share a little bit about what my office does and the main bulk of my work at the moment, a bit about the programs that we have available through our department and some of the other departments here in Michigan, a bit about the federal infrastructure dollars and IIJA, which obviously we're all talking about and all deeply in, and then a couple of other notes on some of the resources that might be available, governmental and non-governmental in Michigan. But first, I'll just say one thing, which I've said a couple of times to folks, and I'm going to have to stop as I get to work more and more with tribes. But I get really excited about the opportunity to work with tribal governments, just because the whole reason I'm from rural northern Michigan, and the reason I'm from there is because my dad moved there to work for the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians 40, 50 years ago or something. And so that's the reason I ended up where I was, in a town of 600 people in northern Michigan. And I'm excited to get the chance to figure out how our office in the state of Michigan can better support on these particular issues around clean energy and climate. So my office, the Office of Climate and Energy, was created by the governor, analogous in a lot of ways to the one that Maria runs in Wisconsin. We're tasked primarily with helping figure out how we can get Michigan to carbon neutrality by 2050, with interim targets of 52% by 2030 and 26 to 28% emissions reductions by 2025. The main bulk of that work so far is developing a plan on how we get there. We are currently working on that plan. I have it open on my desktop all day, every day right now. That is due to the governor on Earth Day on April 22nd. And so we are frantically working to pull in stakeholders and input, and have been consulting with, through a long process that predates my time at the department, through our Council on Climate Solutions, working with private sector, nonprofit, local government, tribal governments. And then we have a dedicated tribal government consultation process that we've been going through, and have been reviewing those comments over the last few days to make sure that we're fully integrating input. So that is pretty much what I eat, sleep, and drink. I'm pretty much all the time working on that plan at the moment. And that will set a framework for the type of work that we're going to do at our office. Similar to Maria, our office is tasked with kind of everything when it comes to carbon neutrality, across our department, the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, which is a 1,500 person department here in Michigan that covers a whole bunch of different topics, some of which I'll mention in a second, and then across different departments as well, and trying to figure out how we best coordinate. Within our climate plan, we did release a draft, and there are a few things to highlight there, though I think the details are going to be more exciting and more fun as we've gotten a lot of great input and are actually diving in. But the bulk of our work in Michigan is going to have to be in cleaning the electricity sector. And so that's going to include incentive programs, resources, and such around deploying more renewables, electrifying transportation, around reducing emissions from buildings through efficiency and electrification strategies, and trying to figure out how we can support that across any and all end users. We'll be calling for incentive programs across each of those spaces to go with some of the existing programs we already have, and to launch new ones. The plan, while it's a plan, a lot of the stuff is tied directly to things that we either are already doing or are going to be doing, many of which are enabled through some of the budget process that's been going on here in the state of Michigan. And we've got $500 million in the proposed budget around climate-related solutions here in Michigan, some of which is going toward vehicle electrification incentives and a number of other items that may be of interest. In terms of kind of moving beyond just our broad scope around the climate plan and trying to figure out how we move forward on that, thinking about the EAGLE programs here in Michigan. So EAGLE is our Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, and I'm at the Office of Climate and Energy within that. At EAGLE, we have a variety of programs through our state energy office or equivalent that may be of interest to tribal governments. and may have eligibility and applicability. But we have a lot of those over time. They're constantly being updated, and we'll have more and more as we get additional allocations of formula funds through the state energy program. So we're actually figuring out exactly what some of those funds will go toward now. In particular, one that might be of interest is we do run the Charge Up Michigan program out of Eagle through which is DC fast charging along high traffic corridors in Michigan, leveraging Volkswagen settlement funds, and then eventually it'll leverage additional dollars as well. And that's one that is constantly open, and we're constantly trying to promote. So flagging that one. We also have technical assistance similar to what Catherine and Maria mentioned, I believe. Our office is always trying to figure out how we can be supportive of all of our partners and working to support tribal governments in pursuing energy efficiency, renewable energy, et cetera. I'll mention just the weatherization piece that Catherine, I get the benefit of having gotten to take notes on what Maria and Catherine said, and so I can highlight things that they said that are also true in Michigan. So we're also trying to tackle this weatherization challenge and have been working with a few partners in different parts of the state to think through the home repair issues that are necessary to deal with in order to actually deploy weatherization dollars and other efficiency dollars as they come through the door. Catherine, I'm going to probably follow up with an email to you about that. But that's just one that if any of the governments on the call today are interested in that topic or have projects, particularly pilot projects you're interested in that regard, we're looking for those and trying to figure out how to best support that, because the key to getting a lot of the dollars out the door that we're getting actually is in solving some of these issues that Catherine had highlighted around some of the baseline repairs that need to be done, some of the contractor training that needs to be done, things of that nature when it comes to efficiency and weatherization. To go into the Infrastructure Act, so talked a little bit about my high level stuff, some of the stuff at our department, now into the IIJA, which is what everybody wants to talk about right now. In Michigan, we're thinking about that on a number of levels. So my team is participating in what we call a climate change sprint team that's internal. That won't be some big public announcement or anything, but we're basically coordinating with a number of other departments across all of our funding opportunities to try and figure out how we can go after the most climate and clean energy dollars possible for Michigan, and working with other states, working with tribal governments, working with local governments, working with private sector actors, in particular looking at some of the competitive funding opportunities. So we'll be working on that and identifying opportunities as they come up and trying to build capacity around that. Additionally, we're trying to figure out how do we just best support, sort of from a facilitating role, private sector actors, tribal governments, local governments in pursuing IIJA funds. So if there are needs in terms of information needs, coordination needs, anything related to that we can be helping with, we're all ears. One of the things that we have done is we've asked the University of Michigan, we have them on contract for some work, one of their departments, and they are compiling all federal programs that are available for local governments and for tribal governments, and flagging any that the state of Michigan needs to be playing a particular role in. But we're going to try and make sure that that information and resources available for all of our tribal government and local government partners. And hopefully we'll be able to continue to iterate on that with feedback from folks about what will be the most effective way to provide that support. And similarly, we're interested in cases where there are opportunities to partner on those applications, things around demonstration projects, like what Catherine had mentioned. We're very interested in that as well. One item that I'll just mention because it's particularly interesting to me, I guess two things that I'll mention in the IIJ bucket just that haven't been mentioned. And I know I'm running up on time, Mike, so I see I'm waiting for the countdown there. But the Department of Energy loans program, I think that one's an interesting one to flag. It's not a new program. It does have additional allocation. It had a minor tweak in its applicability in one of its sections that if state governments provide some type of state support, it creates additional flexibility to allow for those funds, that loan program to be used for proven technologies, whereas before it could only be used for, basically novel technologies. And I think that's one where we're trying to figure out if there are opportunities for the state of Michigan to support. And that my general understanding is that the tribal program within that, there are 3 programs of the loans program. One of them's for tribal nations. That is not something that's been fully subscribed in the past. And so I think that there's generally a lot of interest in that. So I wanted to flag that one. And then also just the NEVI, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure funding that's coming. We're getting quite a bit in Michigan, I think 110, 120 million. A lot of that's going to go into charging infrastructure incentives. We're working through developing that plan out over the next stretch. There will be opportunities for stakeholder engagement. Those plans are due in August. And that's a pretty big one in Michigan, given our focus on electric vehicles. And then I would be remiss if I just didn't share some of the non-governmental things that are going on in Michigan that are worth flagging. Michigan Saves as an efficiency financing program is a great resource to look at for anyone that's looking for energy efficiency, renewable energy, building electrification, EV charging, financing options. And then the Property Assessed Clean Energy program here in Michigan, which would typically not apply to tribal governments directly, but any properties that aren't held in federal trust but are owned by the tribe typically would qualify. And so you would actually be able to go use that financing if you wanted to. I'd be happy to chat more about all these things. I'm a nerd for a lot of it, and 10 minutes is brief, but I really appreciate the opportunity to chat, and I'll put my info in the chat for anybody who wants to talk more.
Well, that's great, Corey. Thank you for that information. Let's see, I was, before I made a terrible blunder all day today. I didn't introduce myself when we got off to a start here. So I'm Mike Troji. I'm a MTERA board member with Oneida Nation. I've been with Oneida Nation for about 25 plus years, doing a variety of things, energy more 10 to 15 years, last 10 or 15 years for the most part. So there, we're introduced after we all talk. So that's the way it should go, right? I'm not seeing a lot of questions. So we got a couple minutes here left here. Let's see. Corey, you mentioned something about PACE. I don't know a lot about that, but is that there's a residential and there's commercial component? Maybe you can address that, and maybe the other Catherine or Maria can see how Wisconsin is, where they're at that.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I don't know that it's a gigantic opportunity. I just wanted to flag it as something that is available in Michigan. In Michigan, we only have commercial PACE financing. So that would be anything that's a non-governmental property. And I used to, my previous job where I was COO, I was running the PACE program for the state of Michigan. And so the reason I am familiar with it is that, and there are just a couple of things. I know that the Grand Traverse Resort, which is owned by the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians, but is not held under trust. So is a private property that could have qualified, whereas a property that is owned by the tribe and is under trust would not. And so I just wanted to flag that as like a resource for some of those properties that maybe like that's a building that definitely could use, at the time, could use quite a bit of efficiency upgrades and things like that. It may have been upgraded since then, but just think that's a worthwhile one to think about. And that's generally, long-term financing options that for private properties generally aren't available, but usually in terms of public financing options and given the federal funds available, we might be able to find more cost competitive things for the time being. And in Michigan, we don't have residential, so I wouldn't speak to it, but Michigan Saves here in Michigan basically serves as all the residential financing options, and they provide they pair with all the utility rebate programs. They often pair with some of our state incentive programs and offer low interest financing with more flexible underwriting criteria for kind of all of the suite of technologies that we need to be deploying at the residential scale to decarbonize and to move to carbon neutrality. So that's a worthwhile one to look at as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll give Catherine and Maria a little bit of time here. We're about less than a minute to go here. I'm not sure if we're going to get cut off at 10:20 or not, but I'll give Maria, Catherine, the last words. Catherine, you start since I'm in Wisconsin.
Great. Well, we are very similar. We also don't have residential PACE, and there is a commercial PACE program that's sort of offered through the St. Paul Port Authority and sometimes through other economic development entities. So I put Leah Wilkes, our fabulous Director of Outreach's email in the chat, and I just encourage folks, please think of us as a resource, and just thank you again for the government to government conversation. Over to Maria.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great question actually to bring up. Wisconsin just passed a bill, Senate Bill 692, to improve access to PACE financing. And again, we are similar to the other states, and we don't have residential, but the PACE financing does allow for multifamily units, so none less than 5 units. So there's still some of that. They count it as commercial as over 5 units. So that's something positive. We also, the legislation expands the type of projects that can be financed, including reliability improvements, weather-related resiliency projects, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and water control measures. Most of our, PACE is through local government. So, we are, through our clean energy plan, one of the things that we're trying to do is encourage our local governments to adopt this PACE program and have it be as robust as possible as it can in the state. So we've got a couple different things going on as it relates to that, but this was the only bill related to energy that passed in our state legislature. So I was like, I want to mention it because it's a big deal, a big deal for us. So, but yeah, I put my email in the chat as well. So please, like the others, feel free to reach out and we'll get you connected really quickly to anyone who can provide you more information on any project that you're working on related to energy or sustainability. We want to be here for you. Oh, you're muted.
I am. Doggone it. Let's see. So thank you for that information. We did get a couple of questions come in, so hopefully we can keep keep the answers short for a minute or two, I guess. But for Michigan, does the plan include incentives for car dealers to stock electric or hybrid cars?
Yeah, well, I smile just because, if you want me to put my foot in my mouth, ask me to talk about car dealers. But no, it doesn't directly include incentives for dealers. We do have an incentive program that is in there for the purchase of electric vehicles, and we are calling for an expansion to look at how we would better incentivize that around used vehicles. It's not directly targeted at the dealers. We'll need to go through quite a bit of conversations with the dealers to figure out what a targeted incentive that's for the dealers would look like to really get that to happen. But it's a point well taken, and figuring out how best to work with the dealership model in Michigan in particular, given the role of car dealerships in the state, is a pretty big issue when it comes to getting more electric vehicles on the road. And yeah, it's something we're working on. It's not directly in the plan.
All of the questions are starting to pop up now. But if you got something to add as far as car dealers for Catherine or Maria, feel free to slip it in. Otherwise, residential PACE programs, have they been plagued with fraud and failure? That's
I can grab that one real quick. So there have been challenges around residential PACE. I think that has been well documented. I think that There are ways that it can be done well with robust consumer protection and consumer protection involved, but to date there have been a number of items that have been challenging, and that's just because residential PACE is a different market than commercial PACE. There are certain safeguards that can be put in a commercial market, like consent of a lender, that you can't put into a residential market, because getting consent from your mortgage lender in a residential market is getting consent from 1,000 investors, whereas in a commercial market, you're getting consent from one investor typically. So there are a number of items like that that just make them very distinct markets, and it just makes residential PACE more complicated. I don't think it's impossible for it to be done well, but the commercial market is very different and can apply to residential multifamily property units, and has been done successfully with very little in terms of anything concerning related to fraud or malpractice or anything like that.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Finally, is there any wave energy ideas in any of the our states here or in the Midwest?
I can jump in. So we have not explored wave energy. One, we are looking at offshore wind as a possibility, but that, those are very, very big projects that will take a really long time. I would say, I think Corey had mentioned, or maybe I'm just hearing things like sort of an all of the above resource approach, like right now we are looking at everything's on the table. But wave energy is one thing that we haven't explored yet. So, so maybe we need to add that to the list.
Yep,
Well,
in
that has to be
Minnesota,
on the
I'm
list.
not aware of it. Sorry, Mike. I can follow up and see.
Okay.
Yeah, we have not either, but we're basically prioritizing the technologies that we know absolutely work today and are cost effective, and then are open to figuring out whatever else can be helpful. And so we're definitely exploring everything.
I think my guess is that the coastal regions are going to be the most effective location for wave technology, but we'll see. Corey, Catherine, Maria, thank you very much for your information that you provided for us. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you being a part of MTERA, and let's continue talking. Thank you.
Hey, Mike, can I throw one more thing out there for people? I was double checking to make sure for eligibility. We do have a clean energy manager grant program that local governments and tribal governments are available to apply for, that would help provide additional capacity when thinking through some of these challenges. So I just wanted to flag that as one that is direct technical assistance that I was triple checking to make sure that I wasn't about to offer something that didn't exist. So anyway, just throwing that out there, but please reach out if anybody has more questions, and thank you so much for the time.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Okay,
Yeah,
take
thank
care.
you. Have a great day.
Fill out your surveys, please. Thank you. Are we good, Carrie?
We're at 52% of the poll being answered. So I'll just keep it up a little bit longer,
Okay.
but you can dip out if you need to.
We do okay?
Excellent. It was great.
Great.
I have to moderate the next one, so
You can do it.
hopefully I'll remember to turn my mic on.
Just leave it on, leave the mute off the whole time. I can't believe I got busted twice for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it wasn't just me today. So
No, not at all. So thanks for helping putting this thing together, and hopefully we can meet face to face one of these days.
definitely. All right. Well, thank you, Mike. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Take care.
Yep, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Thought I was going to be a little extra late here. The last session went a little longer than I thought. So let's see here. How's everybody doing? Are you all set, ready to do your presentations?
We're doing presentations today?
While talking for 8 to 10 minutes?
Yeah, really. Oops, wrong session.
Okay. So I guess everybody's starting to come into this session. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Workforce Development and Training Panel. We know a lot of our member tribes and tribes across the country are interested in renewable energy projects as a job creation strategy. Our 4 speakers today have significant experience with workforce development. First up, we have Deb Tiwa. Deb is a member of the Hopi tribe and is from Haute Villa, Arizona. I'm sorry if I demolished the pronunciation of that town. She is also the owner and president of Tiwa Energy Service, LLC. She provides technical trainings on solar PV and residential electrical in the form of hands-on workshops. In addition, Deb conducts STEM activities for 4th through 12th graders. She has over 35 years experience in the electrical trade industry. She was previously employed with the Arizona Energy Office as a tribal energy coordinator and was instrumental in setting up an extensive photovoltaic lab at Central Arizona College, where she taught both beginning and advanced classes. She is the recipient of the 2021 American Indian Science and Engineering Society Professional Award for Indigenous Excellence. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. My presentation will be on my workforce training here in Northern Arizona. And let's see if I can do this successfully. I'm sharing my screen. Okay. And fairly new to all this Zoom technology in terms of presentation. So the usual question, can you see my screen? Okay, here we go. So this slideshow is an excerpt of what we do here in Northern Arizona. As Carrie mentioned, I have over 35 years in the industry and currently working with Native Renewables. So I will give you a short excerpt of what we do here in Northern Arizona. We were founded in 2016 by 2 incredible women, Suzanne Singer and Wahala Johns. And their vision was to bring over 15,000 PV system, lofty goal, to unelectrified homes here in Northern Arizona. We have a huge population who do not have any type of infrastructure, including electrical. And we also share our work in training local groups here, here in Arizona, and I will share that experience in my slides. My background, I won't repeat what was said earlier, but basically, I just done the calculations this morning. My work has now averaged 39 years in the industry. I started out as an electrician and commercial work, basically. I'm non-union, so I was able to move up into the leadership position within 6 months out of my trade school. I graduated from Northern Arizona University with a BS in Applied Indigenous Studies program with an emphasis in environmental science. Served my internship at Sandia Labs. Again, worked at Arizona Energy Office, and I was an instructor over at CAC, and it's been a wonderful ride so far. I wanted to start out with this slide for those who are interested in perhaps doing some kind of capacity within their own communities. And again, these are excerpts of what we've done in the past. I've been with NRI for approximately 3-4 years, and I was tasked to teach an electrical PV training. And luckily, we were partnered with the organization located in Hard Rock chapter. The Hard Rock chapter also invited us to use their facilities. We had 10 to 12 participants who drove. Some drove 100 miles one way just to take these courses. And what we did was we gave them incentives, including a small stipend or reimbursement. And also from the organization, they served us lunch. So no one had to leave the building to a store, which may be about 20 miles away. Currently, to my knowledge, we have probably about 6 people in the solar field from that particular training, called cohort 1. And 2 people are with us part-time currently. What I do is I teach theory, and I'm a hands-on learning, so I'm really big on hands-on training. Also teach soft skills such as resume writing. We have presentations, and we also have site visits just to make a complete, just for our students to see what it's like in the classroom and what it looks like outside of the classroom. We currently partner with different industries, and we have specific trainings on their equipment, from specs to programming, for example, with an inverter. So our crew is very knowledgeable with all of the equipment that we use, the materials and such, and becoming very proficient with the language, and very impressed when we're on a training and the questions that we ask. Currently, we have continuing educations with cohorts. We're now at our 3rd cohort, and due to the C word, we are not really doing business as usual. But hopefully, now that I think we're somewhat manageable, we can begin to bring cohort 3 to the shop so they can get their hands-on training with a mock setup. Again, we do continuing education in-house. Matter of fact, last week I just taught a basic of electrical wiring. This is the crew. Currently, we have 6 full-time staff and 5 part-time, and we are all native, 100% native. We have both Navajo and Hopi folks with NRI. So our training basically is on safety. I don't teach OSHA. We hire a professional to do that. Some of us have our OSHA 10, and some of us have our 30 card. Here in this picture, this is cohort 2. They set up a mock setup, whereas cohort 1 co-taught with me, so it kind of leapfrog. So cohort 2 will co-teach with me to cohort 3. David here is learning how to use a clamp meter on a AGM battery. So we do a lot of technical trainings. And this, I just realized these slides are pretty much technical. So I'll try to explain as I go along. We include like temperature coefficients, storage of these batteries. DOD is depth of discharge or state of charge. And our cohorts must understand the specs. We also teach them how to do a load analysis, because obviously we deploy our systems out in Indian communities, and we want to make sure that they understand their load, that their systems can last for a very long time. I also teach basic electrical, because many of our homes don't have electricity, and I am transferring my knowledge to my crew to be able to take over this job. This is an example of what we do out in the field. This is an installation of a 2.4 kW system, kilowatt system. And this includes 6 modules, 8 batteries, and these are AGM batteries. And we also usually have the homeowners there so we can explain the system to them. And we have to emphasize on their load, the importance of teaching load and what they can use off their system and what they cannot use off their system. So this training is very inclusive. It's with our staff, with our crew, and with the homeowner. And if we're talking with maybe a community like chapter houses, we also talk with the governments as well. We do a lot of trenching out there. Soil conditions varies. Sometimes today's job or next week's job is going to be very rocky, but we're fairly lucky here that it was soft. So we work around the clock, weather permitting, and once we install the system, the homeowners are very happy to have electricity. Just another example of what we do with our crew. This is an inverter, FP1, and he's looking at the specs, the videos, the voltage, make sure it's at the proper setting. And then we can commission it, which means that we will turn on the system so the customer will have electricity in his or her house. This is the basic electrical training I conducted last week. So this is really kind of like how I like to teach, bridging that theory with the actual. And this is just an example. We're preparing a site visit, and I would say that we're going to this particular area, which is also like 6 hours from our shop. And what I have them do is do an electrical drawing with the proper symbols for residential, and they have to produce a material list and a quote. Then they have to do a material run to Home Depot. So on that shelf behind the gentleman with the orange